We'll call the meeting to order. So before approval of the agenda, we need to vote for a chair and a vice chair. So, that being said, we will take nominations. We'll start with chair.
I make a nomination to keep Kim as the chair.
Okay. That's the first thing. Tracy and Doug. Any other?
You need a first chair now, or what?
We're going to do the first chair now. If there's no other nominations, okay, just Lyle online? Okay. All right. All those in favor then, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. For chair, vice chair. Doug?
I'll nominate Supervisor Olson.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll make a second.
Okay. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none, then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have an officer. All right, then we can go on with our agenda. Number 2, approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Okay.
Second.
Second by Doug. Anybody have questions or anything? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed to say. Okay. Approval of our minutes of our last meeting. Okay. Brad, is there a second? Doug? Okay. Anybody see any corrections or anything? There's no comments in. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed the same. Okay. Public comment. What about 9:04? We will take public comment. We know we have someone up in the west room to do public comment. Ready?
We're good.
Okay. Go ahead. State your name.
Okay, my name is Doug. I'm from the Amory area and the Polk County Snowmobile and ATV Council. And I'd just like to make a quick comment in support of the idea of the Trail Advisory Group, and let you all know officially that we as the Polk County Snowmobile and ATV Council are very interested in participating in this concept. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone up there in person then? Anyone else?
No, that's the only one.
That was it? Okay. Is there anyone online that called in or anything that we know of? Anyone viewing online, do you have a comment? Want to make a comment? Well, we'll give one more shot. If not, we'll close public comment then. Alina, would this be all right if I discuss that we have asked the committee about public comment, that we have it, so it's not quite as virtual, that we maybe have send it in ahead of time? Written comments ahead of time instead of going through this. See if that works. Well, I was going to ask the committee what they think. You think that would be easier than waiting, or have it online also? I guess it's up to you guys. I just thought that would be easier for us or not.
Yeah, I think we should go both ways. I mean, if people want to be online, I think we should have that. But at the same point, if people want to send in written comments on whatever the subject is, I think, we should go take those. And then, if they came in, let's say like yesterday for today's meeting, if staff could, email them out to us so we could see them even ahead of the meeting rather than sit here and read, 5 or 6 or whatever there
Yeah.
is.
Okay.
So that would be my feeling.
All right. All right. All right. Number 5, I don't think we have another supervisor here. I see none. Number 5 is done.
We lost audio.
We lost or I did?
We're muted right now.
Yeah. Good job. Yep, that's our last right now.
That's better.
Can you hear us now?
Yep.
Okay. Is there any supervisor online that wishes to make a comment? Go ahead, Brad.
Just a comment. I mean, did we lose audio before we asked if anybody was out there to have a public comment at the end?
Oh. Okay. Oh, you just didn't. Okay. I'll ask again just to be safe. Is there anybody out there that wants to make a public comment? In case it was me. Okay, it was. So, all right. 5 is done. Is number 6 ready? Do we need a little start of that? Mr. Olson, you asked for this to be on here, so do we know if he is ready?
Good morning. This is Frank Midwinter. Am I number 6?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure for me to be asked to comment on your document, and I'll first give you just a few minutes about who I am and what my area of expertise is. So my name is Frank Midwinter, and I'm at the University of California in Davis. I'm an expert in the area of air quality of and around livestock. I am specialized in quantifying emissions from livestock sources and mitigating those emissions. And I've been here since 2002. As I said, my area of research is really around air pollutants and greenhouse gases, as well as the exposure of people to those emissions. I have done extensive research in quantifying pollutants from livestock operations, with emphasis on dairy, beef. I've done some work around pigs and poultry. And I have done large studies quantifying the exposure, and that means how much people inhale who work on livestock and poultry farms. Because obviously there's always a concern when it comes to air quality from livestock operations, that air pollutants from livestock operations could affect nearby communities. And so I conducted some of the largest studies in this field, where I equipped, let's say, all the workers on 20 dairies with analyzers that measure all the gases and all the particles, endotoxin and so on, that people are exposed to. Along with colleagues who are medical experts, we tested their health before and after their shifts, and also conducted surveys to assess what their health status was. So that's on the health and exposure side, work that has been published that I can point you to, and on the emissions side, that's really where the bulk of my work is, where I quantify the emissions from dairies and all the other livestock categories in a manner that could be very intensive here on campus, where we measure emissions from cows and other livestock species, greenhouse gases, air pollutants, and so forth. But we also take trailers, mobile air quality research labs out into the field and measure, monitor emissions on and around livestock facilities. I do this in concert with the California Air Resources Board. That's our state's agency for air quality. They have funded my most recent research and conducted alongside with me. Here in California has direct relevance to what you do because our livestock facilities are similar. Our livestock facilities are larger than yours are. For example, our dairies are on average about 1,500 cows. We have many dairies that are 3,000 cows and even larger. We do not have as many swine facilities here, but definitely a lot of dairies. About 20% of the U.S. dairies are located here in California. So I will now comment on your report and on the section 15, page 15 through 17, namely the area of air quality that was outlined there. The authors of the study commented that their main focus of the report was on gases, odor, and particulates. They stated that the main emphasis shall be on ammonia and hydrogen sulfide. They say that in the second paragraph under air quality. And then they say that in Wisconsin, neither pollutant has risen to the level of being a health hazard. Now, I agree with that. I have measured both ammonia and hydrogen sulfide at various levels. And what I can tell you for sure is hydrogen sulfide is only a concern at very defined places on a livestock facility. Let's say a shaft around a dairy lagoon where the manure gases are concentrated. Hydrogen sulfide in these confined spaces can rise up to a high concentration and be a health hazard. And every dairyman, every livestock operation knows that in these confined spaces you have to wear a respirator. That's common sense, and that's what everybody knows. Hydrogen sulfide could be high in certain confined spaces, but these are very small in size, a few square feet. And these confined spaces are generally shafts. In the rest of a livestock facility and or around, hydrogen sulfide is not an issue. It is present in very low concentrations. Hydrogen sulfide is a gas that can be easily detected even by your nose because it smells like rotten eggs. It smells like rotten eggs. Now, the gas that can be higher in concentration than anything else is ammonia. But in those freestall dairies that you have, most of your dairies are freestall dairies that emit ammonia at concentrations that I would consider not health relevant and not even at a level where they're detectable to the human nose. At those dairies that I sampled, and I already told you that I did pretty intensive exposure sampling, meaning measuring these gases on people working on dairies and on poultry operations. In neither poultry nor dairy workers have I detected ammonia and or hydrogen sulfide at concentrations that would be considered health relevant. So it's interesting that your report mirrors that. It says in Wisconsin, neither one has risen to the level to be considered a health hazard. However, then the report lists a long list of health outcomes that are associated with air pollutants, and while that's true, I don't see why it's relevant because obviously if you expose a person to a high concentration of a certain gas, then the outcome can be various health risks. But the question is not, can air pollutants cause health problems, but can those air pollutants that stem from livestock operations lead to health outcomes? That's the question here. And So from what I can tell you, from what I have done and what I've measured, there was one job on dairies that repeatedly was associated with higher than normal amounts of particulate matter and endotoxin. And that's one very specific job on dairies. The other jobs did not have this issue. And that one job on dairies was the raking of the freestall beds where the cows lie down. When you rake them so that the cows lie comfortably, then you can kick up some dust, and that dust can be inhaled if the person doing it is not protected with a dust mask. The other jobs on a dairy did not have these risks associated with it. And then in the third paragraph, it seems that the focus is on farm workers. And again, I have published quite a few peer-reviewed papers on farm worker exposures to the specific pollutants that are outlined in your report. And I cannot mirror those assertions. Neither have I found that endotoxins nor gases such as ammonia or hydrogen sulfide or particles, fine particles, rose to the level of threatening farm worker health. The next paragraph is one on greenhouse gases. And there are several mistakes in that paragraph. The one is that it cites that globally livestock is responsible for 18% of greenhouse gases. The correct number is 14.5, and that's according to the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. And then it says that the U.S. Livestock sector emits 7% of greenhouse gases, and that's also not accurate. It's around 4% in the United States, and that's according to the EPA emission inventory for greenhouse gases. The most recent one was released just a few days ago. And then it mentions the global warming potential, which is the potency of these gases. You see the numbers 23 and 300 cited underneath, and these numbers are not accurate as well. The numbers are 28, and then for nitrous oxide, the second greenhouse gas, it's I think right now it's 265. It's certainly not 300. So not that this is a big deal, but there are factual inaccuracies in this. So greenhouse gases are emitted from livestock operations. There's no question about it. And the most consequential one is methane. However, what you need to know, and I have to really, in the interest of time here, say very briefly, the methane that's generated, let's say from cows, is not new carbon added to the atmosphere. What the methane carbon is recycled carbon from something that was in the air originally, namely CO2, carbon dioxide, that's taken on by plants during photosynthesis. Now the carbon that was in the air as CO2 goes into the plants, becomes cellulose, is then eaten by livestock, and then that livestock, particularly ruminant livestock, belches out some of that carbon as methane. And now comes something important. Methane only stays in the atmosphere for 10 years, and then it's destroyed and converted back into CO2. And that CO2 is not dissimilar from the CO2 that was at the beginning of that cycle before going into the plants. So the carbon on the methane side of things is recycled carbon. Okay, it's not new additional carbon. It's not new additional greenhouse gas. So in my opinion, there's very little issue around the greenhouse gases associated with the livestock in your county. Then comes the table. Again, it talks about cross-shift exposures to pollutants, and I think that this report can do better. We have quite some literature on this. If this is really the concern you have, a concern of workers at those facilities being exposed to pollutants, if that is the concern, then that could be fleshed out much better than it is in this report. If your concern is neighboring communities, then this table is insufficient because it doesn't really address neighboring communities. From what I can tell you, and from having monitored these pollutants on livestock operations themselves, being at amounts that were well below any kind of potential health risk, neighboring communities that are further away from the livestock facility, and people being further away from the livestock facility as the workers who work on the livestock facilities have very little to fear with respect to any exposure to any of the pollutants that are listed in this document. Right underneath your table, you have one paragraph that deals with odors. And it states that in Wisconsin, your WPDES does not address odor. And it also says that Polk County does not have an adopted siting ordinance for odors. And then it goes on as saying that odor from land spreading typically does not expose neighbors to hazardous levels of ammonia and hydrogen sulfide, and I would agree with that. I think the whole air quality section then ends on a positive note, namely saying that there are identified best management practices to mitigate air pollution. And I agree with that. I think there are best management practices, and as far as our farmers here in California are concerned, they all are aware of what these are, and they are living up to these standards, because farmers obviously don't want to get into trouble with their neighbors. They want to be the best citizens to their communities they can be, and so, in my opinion, most of them are well aware of standards that are out there, best management practices that help reduce air pollution and nuisances. So with that, these were my comments. I'm happy to entertain any questions, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to make these remarks.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for him? Any questions about his comments on this? Staff, anybody? All right. Well, thank you very much for your presentation.
You are very welcome.
Okay. Interesting. All right then. We'll save that for our number 9 discussion. Let's go into number 7.
So the first item is consideration of the public hearing for the showers. It's staff's recommendation that we wait at least a month, till June. To do this, we reached out to the DNR, and they sent a response that was, a little bit muddy, a little gray. And we're concerned that we don't want to give any reason for anybody to come back and say this was a valid hearing. So in the interest of making sure this project is finished, we'd like to wait till June. If the COVID stuff isn't a little bit more relaxed by June, then we'd have to look at doing a virtual type hearing. But hopefully in June, we could have a more in-person type normal public hearing.
Okay, so probably we'll just let this sit for a couple of weeks. So we'll start saying it. Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, I guess I'm not necessarily against that, just a thought I had in the last couple of weeks. I mean, what would be wrong with setting up a spot where individuals could come into the county or wherever it is, be videotaped for their 3 minutes, say it's from 4 to 8 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. Pick the day, I don't care. And then it's all taped, so people wouldn't have to be here at one given time. It could be over 3, 4, 5 hours. And then actually the committee could just sit and watch that on tape at the next meeting. I'm just saying it's a thought. I'm not saying it's the right thought, but I think I think it's a thought that keeps everybody as safe as it could possibly be. Everybody gets their chance to have their say. It's probably not going to be held in this room per se anyway, even in June. So I guess just an idea to move the process forward and my thought is keep everybody as safe as it could possibly be. And then, everybody would have ample time to come in and speak, because it wouldn't be, well, when the last speaker is done, it'd be from that given time frame. And then our next committee meeting, whenever that would be, that would just be number one on the agenda. And if there's 45 minutes, that's how long it takes. And if there's 4 hours, that's how long it would take. But watching that video would be the top priority of the next meeting. But there again, that was just my thought.
Okay.
Yes, I do. I agree with Brad in the fact that we need to move the process along. I guess in his comments, I'd like to see if we go that route, and let's say we have 3 hours of comments, we should have that at the meeting. Instead of more.
By itself.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's why my point was it would be at the very start. There could be a couple things thrown on the agenda, I guess, that were little at the end in case there was, a half an hour of comment. So, but all of those things that would be after that tape would simply be, okay, it's 2.5 hours or it's 3 hours, or, it would be knowing they're off the agenda and on to the next one.
I think that's a reasonable idea, and you're keeping in mind safety first, and probably doing a video where we can schedule people or back them up one at a time, keep them separated, clean after every presentation is a good option. And maybe that's something we could plan for now, and by the time you get out the public notice and so on, it's probably going to be getting closer to early June anyway, and maybe we take then the choice of do we want to do videos or have if it loosens up, if by some miracle things say, hey, we're open, you can conduct business, then we can do kind of a safe process of marching here. But I would leave it to you guys if you have a preference for one way or the other. I think we're okay. Are we not with that?
Would it satisfy?
It would satisfy the open meeting, so I didn't suggested plan. But, Unity School District was willing to open up their auditorium. We could certainly socially distance and take extreme precautions if things are still.
Yeah. So we have both options.
But we could set the date, and then as that date approached, we would know, okay, we have to go one way or the other.
I think so. Because I would hate to get to early June and then have another extreme lockdown and not be able to have public comment. I think from a time-wise perspective, we need to get this thing moving so that we can get this decision made, master plan submitted, get it back to us from the DNR, by September at the latest.
And by setting it out and hoping for it in person, I think we'll be demonstrating to the DNR that we're doing our best to provide the most opportunity possible. And if we then have to switch to something that is not in person, we will have to make our best effort.
So we should find out.
We get June coming up for it? Can I make a suggestion? June 1st. It's the first Wednesday of June. That way we could hold the public, thereafter compile all that data and present it to you all at the first meeting in June.
Did you say Wednesday, June 4th, Bob?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. How about Tuesday, June 3rd?
The county board order indicates that any county related meeting that is on a Wednesday has to and my thoughts. Yeah.
Well, we can
So-
take that out.
Right, but as we sit here today and talk, it's still there, so.
Is Unity fairly open?
We don't know.
We don't know. We were planning to reach out to them after this conversation.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to say we should lean towards the virtual meeting because I'm not comfortable with going community meetings and social. Not even in the person. That's just my personal view.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't bother me, but I'll agree with Doug that I think if the DNR would have approved saying that, we're going to do it virtually, I think I'll agree with Doug. That's the way I would vote, to just do it virtually. Everybody still gets their say, and I think it spreads it out over that longer time frame where people have, and if they've got 3 weeks to plan for this, maybe we could get it set up, or even they could get it, a certain time if they wanted to, and set everybody 5 minutes apart or whatever, that wanted an appointment, so to speak, which would then give staff time to clean up between people, and hopefully we wouldn't have a big long backlog of people waiting. If at least a certain percentage knew when they could speak.
How would you feel about people recording their own videos? I know that would take it potentially way out of Polk County, but if people could record their own videos, I'd imagine we have the technology that packs those together.
I mean, we should set it up as a normal public street. But average person, I don't know, Switzerland, whatever, what I mean? Look at it, pretty open end.
Yeah, I'd be much more in favor of just, having that spot set up where everybody who wants to speak can come through, and be assured that the county is doing everything to keep them as safe as possible, while they're there to speak for them, 30 seconds or 3 minutes, whatever it is, and keep that traffic flow kind of to a minimum.
I think we can design a process that is both safe and people could provide testimony remotely and in person. We can design a process for that. I do want to just provide some context. We did reach out to the DNR about the possibility of a telemeeting or remote type of public hearing, and I'm going to use their words verbatim. They asked that we provide this is their words, a meaningful opportunity for the public to comment. And so if you take that into consideration, the best practice would be doing the hearing in person like originally planned. And we're just trying to, prevent any potential conflicts once we do submit the master plan. And ideally, we want to have it in person.
At least they can still conduct business when I'm watching.
But depending on all these unknowns with the COVID situation, we can certainly prepare for both. Like was originally stated, we could develop a process that's both safe and provides people the opportunity to provide testimony, and still plan for it in person as well.
If you set it up in that format, then you guys set it up so we can listen. Or just,
At the recording.
a remote place, like we put people upstairs.
maybe set it up.
That's what I think. If I were a public citizen and I wanted to make a comment, but I wanted to be safe, if we had a group like this in here, we would run, I would think, the individuals up to the West Conference Room or to a conference room where they're by themselves, they come up, they make their comment, we clean before and after, they walk out, then we let the next person walk in. That might be a thought.
Is that something we should set up like a whole day and a half? We have 60 feet. What did we have last time? Like the last one, so I mean, they come to day and a half and then some that day. So we're working as a public hearing, well, it's 2 separate days. But they come in the video it. And the next day, two, in case there's a lot of people on the space now. They run fast.
So you would
space it out so it wouldn't have all 50 people would come one day to stand in line.
schedule appointments, I suppose.
Yeah, I think, to me, I think the advantage of taping it is that, well, then, you know, the tape can be shut off for that 2 or 3 minutes while it's being cleaned. You know, because then 2 or 3 minutes between people is going to add up to an hour and a half. If we get 50, 60 people, it's going to add a lot of time to that process. So there again, if we could have a sign-up sheet, so to speak, where people knew that, okay, if I come at 4 o'clock, I'm going to get right in. Because here's my time, and I think, Kim, you said earlier, maybe it could be, all day or something.
Or, I'm sorry. I'm just thinking, because then you're going to have the day of, you're going to have that 2 or 3 minute wait in between. I'm just thinking maybe if you did it the day before, if we have anyone who knows how to edit it, to edit out the empty gaps, we could probably get a lot more people to comment for you to view within an hour or so, or however long it takes.
Yeah, I think so too, because if that 2 or 3 minutes, it's going to eat up, they're going to be able to speak for 2 or 3 minutes, and then it's going to take 2 or 3 minutes to clean down. So if we could, there again, if the camera was just shut off when I got done speaking and wasn't turned on again until Doug showed up to speak, everything in there is gone, and I guess my concern would be is then what if all 60 people show the morning of the meeting?
That's what they'd have to set up the schedule to be able to space them out. So if you call first, okay, I can be there at 10. Go 10 to 4, 10 to 2. First come, first served. Okay, that day, something like that. Keep the space. So if we give, say 10 to 3, we come tomorrow. First call, I would be there at 10. So if you guys can't start filling the gaps. If that would work. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Try to table of guys sign in on, so it's first come, first served.
Yeah.
Or just go down the list.
Probably better to have an appointment.
Thank you, Emily, and now I'll be able to hear him. So, yeah, I guess I would be for setting a date, and then, it's going to be at our first meeting in June. Let's say we're going to watch the tape of it, and then so it could get published. That's when it's going to be, and then staff could work on figuring out how to get that done between, you'd have 3 weeks or whatever a month to get it figured out, I guess, as to how it was going to go.
Oh, let's see how much interest you get right away. Sure. I was trying to think of the last one. Look at how much. Yeah. You can just check it from there.
At the Unity?
Yeah.
Before my time, but I think more than 60.
Yeah, we had,
There was more people.
we had like 55.
55. Oh, Jim was it?
Yeah. Yeah, the subcommittee on the Stour had, yeah, that was the 55 that Jim said.
Okay. That was the 55. Okay.
But if we get 55 again, that's gonna be that hour and a half of downtime throughout, you know, with 3 minutes between for cleaning, so.
Yeah, it was
Before the public hearing got postponed, we had asked staff to reach out, have them assign a representative.
correct.
So we didn't have a bunch of people come up and say, I support X, I support X. And we can still do that, and that might eliminate a lot of the folks.
So we should, yeah, I would say so. Okay, so we're gonna set it up, so we'll have the next meeting to discuss it, but the date would be the first meeting in June. But do we start the day before, I think, public hearing over 2 days, can't I? I can do that.
You can do that.
One thing I can do. You know, so if they come in, it would be public comment or whatever. Let's see.
We need a date for the actual public hearing to notify those who want to give testimony.
So we'd have to do that Wednesday and the day before. So you do this for 2 days, so you'd have a whole day of 55 people came. You wouldn't want to do it all in a week. How will that work?
So remember, Wednesday has to be over by 5 p.m.
Correct.
And they're saying kind of daytime.
Public hearing all day Tuesday. Or have a next Tuesday morning. And then we would continue the public hearing the next day at our regular meeting.
Would you be meeting as a committee the day before? Because then it's not a meeting, and you wouldn't need to notice it. You just have to communicate to the public that they can't, this is an option for them to provide a testimony of their action by coming in and reporting it ahead of time.
Yeah.
But if the committee itself is not meeting, I'm talking loud because I don't have a microphone.
Sure.
If the committee is not meeting, then it is not a public hearing at that time. The public hearing will still be on the date and time where the committee is actually hearing whatever testimony is provided, whether pre-recorded or not.
Can't hear me? It'd be nice if they do it a day ahead. I agree. Because otherwise, it would be.
Yeah, I think if we're gonna tape it, it has to be a day ahead. I mean, I don't care if they set it up to be Monday and Tuesday and we're meeting on Wednesday. I mean, yeah, to me, that's the reason that you tape it is so that we get rid of those 3-minute breaks in between, and it's just wide open for everybody to be able to come at, I'll say, at their given time, not a set time of 9 o'clock on Wednesday morning. It'd be a bigger window for people to show up. I mean, maybe it could be, Monday from 10 to 3 and Tuesday from 4 to 8. So if people wanted to, it would give the people who were working, during the day that option to show up somewhere between 5 and 8 at night. To make it as accessible for people to give their point of view as we possibly can in that time frame, but then simply that then on that Friday or on that Wednesday, whenever it is that we meet, then we're just going to watch it. And that, like Doug said, that's going to be the meeting.
So with that, we can notice it that way?
You would have to notice the actual meeting as the public hearing, but make it clear that the public comments were all pre-recorded on specific days. Whether the DNR is going to be happy with that is is not a question I can answer. I can only answer that I believe it would satisfy the requirement to have a public hearing, and it would not violate any open meetings law issues.
So staff, do you think it would be, could you do like a daytime Monday? Over 2 days. Yeah.
So what are the odds that if we asked the DNR, they'd actually tell us?
No. It has to be a meaningful.
Again, we're doing a meaningful opportunity for the public to comment. And so we take that as, probably best practice to have a hearing in person. But your alternatives of from 2 days, one during the day, one for the evening, ample opportunity for folks to provide testimony. We would record it, and then we would share it with you all at your next subsequent meeting for you to consider as we move forward with our master plan. Because that is the next step, is you would listen to the public hearing, consider it, make any adjustments to the recommendations, and then forward it on to the county board for full approval.
Well, I think by giving the public, 2 options over a couple of days, one a few hours during the daytime, one a few hours in the afternoon and evening, that's certainly the opportunity in the times we're at, to keep moving forward with something. And I think that meets the requirement of the DNR.
Okay. Let's staff set it up that way. Go from there.
This is Tim. I just have a couple comments, if that's all right.
Yep, go ahead, Tim.
Just for consideration, the scheduling of that meeting, just remember that it's always 3 weeks out from your committee date due to publication purposes. So it would be at a minimum 3 weeks from today's date would be the earliest that you could do it, or 3 weeks from now-ish anyways. And then if you want us to edit any of that video, it'd be nice to have a little more time than maybe the night before, just for consideration purposes. Just want to throw that out there.
It's a week.
Oh, a week before? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the first meeting is the second week in June. This would be the second, third of June. The second and third. You'll have it. Okay, so you have a weekend at the fifth.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Everybody's good on A? We'll go to B.
Do we need to set a public hearing officially? Do we need a motion for that or not?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't. Oh, sure.
Okay, E. Yeah. Hold on a second, Ben. Are we setting that then so that we would be watching that in the first meeting in June? Is that
Correct.
so it can get out and get advertised? Because it probably wouldn't hurt if we started advertising that right now. Just so that it was very clear to the public, rather than just give 2 weeks, if we could give, 3 weeks of notice leading up to it. To say, here it is, questions, call this number, things like that.
I would suggest that all 3, so the 2 dates for people to make appointments, how they make appointments, and then also the date that the committee will be reviewing all of the public comments, all 3 should be noticed together so that the public is very clear on that this really is meant to be the public hearing, but it's just being encompassed in 3 separate days where the committee is only meeting on the final 3rd day.
Okay. All right, we'll move to D. Now, you feel good with that?
I'm good with that.
All right, that's what we need. Now, the trail advisory,
Trail Advisory Group. This is kind of a retooled presentation of last meeting's information on the Trail Advisory Group. We have, just a second. Is there an on button? It's on. Where? Okay, not. Oh, you can use it for me, right? Okay. So, in Polk County, our cooperators, distributors, defense groups, and snowmobile club and councils do most of the maintenance and operations on our county trails. And we couldn't, as a county, we couldn't handle that even if we wanted to with the resources we have right now. We have 7 county parks with over 400 acres that we manage. There's 400 miles of trail. We do that with 1.3 full-time employees and typically 2 seasonal employees each year. And that doesn't leave us much time to get out on the trails and do the stuff that keeps these trails safe and operational. So we rely really heavily on our contributors in the county. And typically, there's been more contributors than we can handle. So inevitably, somebody feels left out of the loop. There's a disconnect, they feel disenfranchised at some point in time. So a need, if you flip it for me, a need would be to bring all of these folks into the loop. And that's why we're talking about developing this trail advisory or trail planning group. And they would assist us with maintenance operations. This group would help build trust between the county and these community groups and cooperators that don't always see eye to eye. The issues that they talk about now are contentious at best. And it would also help build trust and communication between these 2 different groups. A lot of times there's multiple groups in the county working on the same trail, and they're not even talking. These groups are always evolving. They're getting new members and new volunteers, and we need to get input and keep up with that and keep up with the needs in the county. And there's new groups coming up, too, all the time. We just had an equestrian group that was formed as part of the Stour master planning process. They mobilized, and everybody was aware that, they're around now. The MOUs and maintenance agreements in the county are out of date, and they need to be revamped and relooked at. And these groups will help, get a process with transparency and continuity across the table, and everybody's going to understand how these other groups stand with the county and their responsibilities with the county. And flip. So what I'm proposing, the framework of this group is we're going to try to have equal representation throughout the 6 main groups in the county. We have snowmobilers, equestrians, bikes, ATVs, skiers, and hikers. There are a lot of other recreational uses in the county, but we felt that this would really encompass the main players on our trail system. Talked to Chairman O'Connell before the meeting, and there was a lot of interest and enthusiasm with these volunteers joining this group. In fact, there's probably more interest than spots. So we have more volunteers than available spots. So to make that process about appointing members to the committee or the group easier, proposing an application process. And then the meetings would be held quarterly. Staff will facilitate these meetings, but the group will dictate its goals and objectives and come up with what's important. And then the information and progress will be passed up the chain to the Environmental Services Committee. And the focus of this group right now is trail maintenance and operational goals. We're gonna attack that, the low-hanging fruit, the stuff that everybody can agree on, and then we can maybe build in once we have the capacity back. But right now we want to handle that O&M. We want to build the open lines of communication between all parties. We want the snowmobile folks talking to the Friends of the Gandy. And we want everybody working together. If there's a storm, we had a bunch of people on the Gandy Dancer last year. Everybody was doing different things, but nobody was talking. That was bad.
So this group's going to be encouraged to work together and come up with solutions. So I'm sure there's some questions and comments because I think this might get revamped a little bit now. So that's what I have on that.
All right. My thoughts on this was that we would take two supervisors that want to be on it right now, and they would take to the first meeting, and they would actually then, with staff, go through this, set their goals, and then they would go through the applications and do that. Instead of at the committee level, the two supervisors would do that at their first meeting and stuff, start going through that. It's organized, or before their meeting. What do people think of that? So we're not going to pick them ourselves. This group wouldn't pick the two people we assign to this committee work.
So I'm fine with the committee not picking them. I think the group should pick them. So the snowmobilers pick theirs, the hikers pick theirs, the bikers. Everybody picks their own. That way they get the individual that they want on the committee. And this committee doesn't pick them. Nobody picks them. The group picks their own. And I don't think so. I guess a question for staff. I mean, it doesn't matter that it's an even number of people on it, right? Because it isn't like if there's going to be a 4-3 vote at some point, or a 7-0 vote. I don't think we have to worry about, we gotta find, that odd number of people. They're going to be advisory only. I guess, and I'm sure Doug can speak to this. I know Chairman Nelson can speak to it as the three of us sat on the rewrite of zoning. I'm just going to say if you're going to meet once quarterly, pitch it out the window before you start. We met once a month, and Tim can speak to this too. We got nothing done until we started to meet more often. We always spent too much time, I will say, hashing over what we had discussed the meeting before. And I would like to see these groups come in with ideas right from the start and say, okay, whatever group you are, you come in with your big idea. Where do you want to expand walking trails, biking trails in Polk County? And come in with a big plan so that committee has really something to work with. And nobody's idea is right or wrong. It's here's our idea, and everybody has to work on it. But just my thought.
I can speak to the number of people, the 12 people that were mentioned there. I think a manageable size is probably that 8 to 12 people. So if it's somewhere in between there, that's fine. Just as long as the groups are represented and they feel that everything, there's equal representation for the groups, so we don't get that fracture in the group that's motorized versus non-motorized. That's what we're trying to do.
Right, and I think by letting them pick their representatives, us or a couple county board members are not saying, we're picking Ben over Bob. Well, but that group wanted Bob. Well, let them pick theirs, and that way, that way we can't be wrong under any circumstances. Because they got their individual on it, and if somebody else comes to the table and said, well, you forgot about us, we're not one of those 6, well then, I guess they can be welcome to the table too. Because again, it isn't about voting on something down the road. So if there's more non-motorized than motorized or the other way around, it isn't like they're going to be making a decision down the road to do something.
Okay.
If I may, And I would just ask for some clarification here, because this has evolved from last month or last meeting to this meeting. I think originally what you may be thinking of, Supervisor Olson, is it was presented as a way to bring in different ideas and to come up with strategic ideas, suggestions on what goes where. I think now what you just presented is something that says we're going to start with a group that's just going to start communicating and looking at how can we, and I just listing it, take care of our trails, resources, share information. So that there's a difference in what they're presenting now from what was presenting last meeting.
Okay, yeah, I was going off of last meeting, so.
Mr. Chairman, the list here, I'm just trying to get this in my mind so we get it all straight. It says snowmobile, bikers, ATVs, ski hiking, the groups you kind of listed down. So let's say the ATV, we'll deal with that example. There's a north group and a south. Would each one have a representative? Because on the hikers, there's the candy dancer group and then there's the sour group. So you don't really want representation from, I think, from each end of it.
And that's something that we had talked about. And if we take folks from specific groups or clubs as representatives in this group, where it's going to be huge, because there's how many different snowmobile clubs in the county and different bike clubs, that's why we were thinking about breaking it down by use. So we could have somebody talking about issues in the county that, it's bikers. Doesn't matter if they're biking on the Gandy or the Sour or the Cattail or the Woolly. Same with snowmobile or ATVs. It doesn't matter if you're riding an ATV on the Sterling Loop up north or on the Cattail or the Sawmill Trail down south. You're still representing that ATV aspect of the town. That was my initial thought. Certainly open to, suggestions.
Well, here was my idea. So if I put those two supervisors on it, they'll get to go through and do the application and just see how they come in. If there's 100, then they got to vet it down. There's 22, something, but just every group knows that they can at least apply. And maybe let those two go through it and decide how big it is. Go ahead.
But if we're going to let the groups pick their person, then I'm not against, putting it out there, but if we're going to say, well, okay, the hikers get to pick theirs, the bikers, the snowmobilers, the ATVs, then I think we need to leave that in the group's hands and say, and not staff, not this committee, and not the two supervisors, but let all of those 6 groups, get together themselves and say, here's the person that we want on this committee. And if for whatever reason down the road that person backs out, then we're going to have to find, someone else. And then it would be up to those people to go back to their respective groups, I guess, and give a report and say, here's what we done last year.
In other words, the groups would self-nominate their representative.
Yes. Yeah, the groups get to pick them. I think that takes staff, that takes committees, that takes the 2 people from the county board on the committee, that takes everybody out, and nobody can say you picked the wrong person. They self-nominated the person that they wanted on the committee.
Follow up to Brad, because I agree with what he said. That's what I was trying to get at, is the complexity of having north and south ATV groups, and then you've also got the county, and so you need to get those groups to get together to come up with a representative. And the hiker and the bike, the Sour, the Candy, they've got to get together, because
This is Tim.
Yep, go ahead.
I had talked with a couple other counties too about some of the ideas that they've had and have implemented regarding a group like this. And they had talked about making sure that there is geographic representation. So you get people from all corners of the county. So to Doug's point, if we can have the groups talk to each other and get some geographic representation amongst their user groups, so people from the north, south, east, west, so that you get a couple of people for each group that have, those points of views incorporated, that would be a good idea, I think.
Okay. All right. We're going to move forward on this. Do we put those two supervisors on there to get it started there?
Mr. Chairman, is there a need to have county board representation at least at the startup phase? Just a question.
Yeah, I believe so. I think it's vital to make sure that things, flow as smooth as possible, I'll say. So to me, and I'll just throw this out there, I would say Supervisor Nelson, just because he sits on the NORTAC committee for trails for the county board. And then I would throw Supervisor Middleton's name out there and say she's, I've either read or seen where she's expressed interest in this. If she's willing, that's fine. If she's not, then it would be on to, somebody else after that. But I would throw those two names out there to say, let them, either, I don't know that you would call it chairman or vice chairman or representatives from the county board or however you want to look at it. But I would throw those two out there and say, let them, be involved in it.
All right, and those are the two names that have called me and talked to me even yesterday about it. Both of them would like to be on. So, can we just appoint them? Do we need to appoint them?
Under your current rules of order, committees have the ability to appoint ad hoc committees, subcommittees.
So we have the ability to, this would be the start of it, open it up with these two. Do we need a motion? Yes. Or
To have the two supervisors as, that would be appropriate at this time.
you start to work with staff and get this advisory group going. Okay.
So would we put a time frame in there to hear back from the user groups? I'll say, those 60 user groups and somebody else who wants to jump in because they think they're not included. Are we gonna? Is that 2 weeks? Is it a month? Have they already sent the names to staff saying here's who we would want? Just a time frame for
To start.
To start so that, the two supervisors know that, okay, is the first meeting 3 months from now or is it 3 weeks from now?
That's the time frame. I'd like to put it
And I think, yeah, and I think,
to notice the application.
yeah, so you said like our first meeting in June.
Yeah, that'll keep it the whole month. Okay. You get together and you get that person.
Yeah, and then I think after that, once the committee is set, I think it should be on, they can decide how often they want to meet, if it's quarterly or monthly or, whatever it is, but then let that committee decide their schedule and that type of thing.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion, put Chris Nelson, Amy Middleton, to head the trail advisory group, and then they can,
I'll make that motion to put those two supervisors on the trail advisory committee.
Okay.
Second.
Any other comments yet on the trail? If not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay. Bingo. 10 o'clock, Union, 10 minutes break. Recess. So, yeah, sit down. Bring her in. Are we live?
Yeah, you're good.
We're good. Okay, thanks, Tim. We're gonna go into our forestry. Yep.
First line item. Refresh your memory. Timber sales has 14 also offers January. Pretty much current items. One of the sales that's sold in January. Another sale that's sold. One of our games that's so essentially between January and April, all the sales on that easy.
Hey, Mark?
Yep.
You might want to speak into the microphone. I can't hear you very well.
Okay, thanks. How's that better?
Yeah, that's a lot better. Thank you.
Okay. So Roger Wade lawn will give you the minimal bid. We're not violating a better price. Set that minimal. Advertise that minimal. Up the bid. So I guess I'll open up the questions. The chief provided to you. This kind of some of your public bid. Kind of entertaining.
So why does the one on top never sell? I mean, is it just hard to get to? Is it, I mean, is there, I'm assuming there's a reason that we never get an offer.
this, yes, I don't know how it. I have a question for Paul. Bring further on the track. Power.
Okay. Even with the shortage of toilet paper, they don't want it. Yep. Right. All right. So any questions on these two? Anybody? So we need a motion to approve these?
Yeah.
We usually. Okay. Tracy.
Second.
Doug? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay.
Second time I don't, I don't know, pretty briefly, allow you guys to ask some questions. A couple of things I want to highlight. So essentially, the mineral resource, outlines kind of based on forest. Forest or timber, wildlife, recreation, water quality. Of that, we just reviewed timber skills that are set up on the reservation, long-term allowable harvest, 125 acres. That type of okay, so under section 2, the activity in 2019, gross receipts were almost $190,000. These timber sales are between 500 established. Department also established just outside of resident economy. Last year was significant now, everything due to tax on floor now, what available, all the typically, there's 25 every other year, planting, last year, planting year, trees. This is the first year, I'm not going to say ever, but the bud gap essentially 50 acres. But all that is from a little piece of tree from the top bud. Last time I looked at it, that would have been about 2 weeks ago. One year around, and the bud gap. I did notice quite a bit of brown. Trees that were not brown. What that means is previous years of big cat mouse, it grows in quite a bit brown. Never did. So we tried it a little bit yesterday, and they're good, but not out of the woods. Grass starts spinning. Other items. Working towards the scale on later, after the 1,000. And the other thing I want to highlight is mid-March, March, $170,000. Any questions? So waste purification is better than rather than
bring in the experimental soil for mining. Next time we have it, take some place. Revenue, I'm just going to highlight the revenue. One of the things that we want to point out in the revenue side of things, the forestry department starts out with all the negative money every year. Essentially, in 2019, that $80,000. So essentially, the panel that goes over, I'm taking out basically the $82,000 service other services. What we're trying to do with the forestry department is we're trying to do that function of the department. So after the negative money of $107,000, which was one in revenue, full expenses, we're $142,000. So once we improve it to that, over $16,000 more. I just forestry department cost tax. That annual levy is $82,000. What that means is we're going to forestry roughly $70,000 on our. That makes sense. Moving on. This is a big ticket item where we talk about forest land, but we talk about the severance that is paid. Basically, the cell table of credit there, the checks that went out back home to the statute. The county forests are only required gross timber sales. Resolution 1 that was passed in 1984 essentially helped that for the state statute began, we're only required to take 10%, signed by resolution. A lot of townships have interpreted the payment into that's not the original one. Severance to the township was a way you could look at it and do it as a problem. Road or whatever it is. Essentially, this is the county forest or county. Contribution to the township of those kinds of in addition to
So, just ballpark figures, do you know how much county land is in like Sterling, Lorraine, and McKinley? Okay.
So essentially, the biggest power would be the county Sterling. All around the sheet right here, I'm going to it right now. Essentially, paying out the 30% that is governed by resolution 2368. That's that 30%. That's attributed to the figure of $56,435. So that's basically paid generated
Now, what you guys consider is we already doing the first plan. I guess now would be the time to consider alternative one. As on this year, essentially I provided kind of an analysis of, I put the 10-year in with it, 10-year grocery, what is cut off time, or that part, at 30%, looking at 48,000, the township, 20%, looking at 32,000, that's right. Just as one about what we did in township, and whether it be house, everyone's kind of under a budget, right? And just, I was kind of proposed the point that's kind of not right on. But as I looked at the full time, there's been all that stuff, all the resources, battery, truck, gas, that's and in a 10 years, this year, and a few 10 years, every service, for the $100,000 looking at 30%. So, I guess I'm just putting information on some of you guys that you guys feel comfortable with doing 30%, or if you want to reduce it. I don't know if there's
Of course there is. So, a number of years ago, a former administrator ran this by us too. I am horribly against moving from 30%. And that's probably because I sit on a town board and, of course, Grand Falls gets $75. So it's not a real big deal to us. But if I sit on the town board of Sterling and, I'm getting $33,000, that's a big deal to the Sterling Town Board. It's a big deal to any board. And, forgive me if my math is wrong, but I believe we own the equivalent of 250 40-acre parcels in Sterling. $33,000 a year is a pretty good deal, for the money that they're losing in taxes, because they're losing considerably more than that in property taxes by the county owning it. And yeah, the county is getting something out of it, but I'm not sure that Sterling is getting a lot out of it. Town of Clam Falls has a fair chunk of DNR land, and I don't see Clam Falls getting anything out of it, other than about $1,200 in lieu of taxes every year. And so to me, I think it is very fair to give these towns 30% anyway when, if it was spread out equally and everybody was getting as much as, Apple River, Bone Lake, Clam Falls, and Johnstown, and that was being spread across, every town in the county. But, like I say, most of that money is going to Sterling, McKinley, and Lorain, probably over 90% of it. And I think they deserve every penny of it, that comes out of there. I think it's still a good deal for, Polk County in the scheme of things. And if Mark goes a little farther in the red because they're getting 30%, I'm okay with that. It's still the 30% regardless if we sell 200,000 or 100,000. And I think for those three townships that are getting a pretty good chunk, I know that it's a big deal. I can guarantee you if we ask the top three townships, they would say no. We have a use for that money every year. But that's my town board side of me.
Let's finish that before we go back to that. Let's finish this one first, and we'll go to that. That's under Isn't that under another part? Yeah. That'll be under A. Let's finish your review and then we'll come back to this discussion. Is that all right? Finish the annual report and then we'll come back to that discussion.
Yeah.
Since you only got a little bit left. Then we'll jump, that'll begin with that 1,000. To get into those concerns.
I'll go back to that.
Yeah.
The last piece of information that I have, essentially, right now, there's $42,000. That loan was paid off at the end of 2008. That money was sitting there. We had a discussion from the finance justice. What happened is the county auditor made finance put it back 2020, so still back $7,000 and balance so it got put back in 2020. So essentially what needs to happen is there needs to be the journal entry for just that from the installment taken out of state and state. That needs to shift the undersale revenue account.
Do a motion for that to?
No,
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, move on to the file, and I'll go back to the discussion. Essentially, a couple of pieces of information. Thank you, also. So part of this exercise is looking at what other counties are doing. So 65% of counties that contain county work plan are paying 10%. 30% are paying 20%. Tarrant County and Polk County are the only counties paying 30%. Not good. Today when supervisor Polk said, but I looked at the budget that there's working department and the previous administrator and almost 2 years that I have been, essentially we've given out a growth fund. Now, is there money to this gas tax code that's like our money? 7 miles or so of the gas tax code. Take the entire system, part of the 30 miles, whether secondary or kind of a temporary road, that's $0. So where do I rely on? So point being is there's some things that forestry is off in terms of overall budget. Right or wrong, they just say one. Right now, the forest plan will have to go back all the way back to 30%. What's currently there at the 3 months point of view, I guess that will supervise the minutes is correct, before I even send out the floor, you can discuss this. I still, on your board meeting, they're,
Well, what does everybody think? I mean, it's basically we just go down each thing and see if anybody wants to change it, otherwise it stays the same. There's a motion to change it. Hearing none, I guess. Guess it'll stay the same for now.
all right, moving on to the impact. I apologize for my intent was done, out to you guys, and I do this a little bit before the meeting. However, a lot of stuff is packed, get it together, so I guess it's on me to be a little bit late. It's kind of the first time it's put together. However, like 95% of it was from the artist. And we can go through the chapters. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time going through it page by page. I don't get it in the funnel level. Just if you guys can kind of look at it, take a look at it, and the next environmental first meeting, I guess we'll put this back on the agenda and questions on it. But in summary, pages 1 to 8 are just maps of the course kind of moving in from a high level view to a blocking map. We'll clear back after 295. So that's that. Pages 1 through 17 is basic statute. That page, since we allow without our section 2011, is contained on forest management. And we move all the way to pages 18 to 31. And essentially, with the help of what I said, I dug out pretty much every resolution ordinance section that pertains to the operation management of the forest estate. With the help of Tim Anderson, essentially, what I've got provided to you today is kind of a copy of a copy that is started so Tim Anderson and some of the work I did by Polk and this book that essentially keep going and go to page 20. These are all kind of nice, etc. The reason that I ended up converting these into, had Tim convert these into a Word document. This is a project for another day. I don't know what the work plan looks like for the environmental services committee for the second half of this year. Certainly in 2021, we've got a hard ordinance on some agenda meetings. What I'd like to do now is ordinance all the way back from 1985 through 96. 2009, etc. There's some things that I mentioned in other chapters, such as how long for a vote, can't be incorporated into the course. But that's for a different thing. What's one in the plan is what it's doing. But some of these ordinances, the outline, I will bring out a couple. I just one. Ordinance. I'll get you that.
Mark, I'm getting information that people can't hear you and stating now. Hold that microphone. They're getting about a third of it.
So on page 29, resolution 23, associated with rights of county board to pay members to the township and board plan. On page 30, the county board ATV ordinance basically summarizes that. ATV is only allowed on designated trails and it's paid. And resolution 3587, up to about the same time, and essentially, that the county will pay $50,000. Moving on to page 33, shoreline zoning ordinance. Thank goodness for Jason. I kind of went past the cases zoning ordinance, but this helps kind of put the pertinent points in place. Any questions so far, or keep moving on?
Keep going.
So basically, page 37 is the document. It's essentially all the maintenance agreements, the timber sale contract, MOUs, board that. One of the overriding questions I have, so we discussed this in chapter 5 on the timber sale contract. Last time we had met, there was no signature line on this. The only people who have been signing the timber sale contract have been myself and the water contract. For our discussion in chapter 500, I noticed that adding line items, all the demonstrators sign off on that. So, going to page 46, I added a line for county administrators. That's the direction you want to go, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So, the remaining contract, whether it be land use agreement,
Agree.
Yep.
My bad. So the land use agreement, the right-of-way agreement, basically as the forms are now, essentially we just signed an agreement with Polk. The form that I have now, essentially the environmental services chair signs off on it, and the forest administrator. Is that what we want, I guess? Or do we add the county administrator to that also? We'll get that one up on the screen. It'd be roughly page 55, 56, somewhere in there. Yeah. Keep going. It's gonna 3/4 of it. Keep going. Get like 10 more pages, 15 more pages. There's one right there, the access permit, like one more page for the signature.
underneath them 2 lines at the bottom. Yeah, so the access agreement currently, so if someone needs to access their property, if we grant one, the form today, the permittee or the person asking for the access signs it, and the forest administrator today. Do we want to add any signatures to that? Whether it be the environmental services chair or the county board supervisor, or the county administrator, excuse me. We don't have to decide today. I guess we can do a follow-up next week, but these are, maybe this boils down to per council. I don't know.
Does it matter?
And all these permits do need to come through. Remember, I work as an agent of the Environmental Services Committee, so any permit, every sale, what have you, does need to be approved by the committee. So
We're usually both here, so
I think, Mark, and if you do present it to a committee, since you're here or the chair is here, I'm good with that. I don't think you need to add me to this one.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, because it's, as long as it's coming, it has to come to the committee anyway. We know what the permit is for, as the committee, so.
everybody knows what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, yeah, I'm going to be asking for a whole sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. So just say the environmental chair or designee, just in case that's the chair.
But
yeah.
That way if you're not here.
Inside. Yeah. So you say, you keep it moving. Okay.
so how did we handle the right-of-way easement that was just granted to Polk in the town of Sterling? I signed that. Okay. Okay. I think they have. Correct. So, I guess at this point I'll just incorporate probably a signature right on the chairman of the Environmental Services Committee at the time, or that's what I just heard. So sure. Okay. Okay. I'll make a note of that and then I'll move on. The other, I'll get you on the pages here. 2 more things I want to cover and then I'm done. Done listening to me for the day. Move forward here. This would be something new that I added. I just want to point it out, make it aware of you. It should be on page 67 for the packet that I handed out. It's going to be like 10 more pages or so. Right there. So periodically, I don't get a whole lot of calls, but I've gotten a couple. People requesting to collect ginseng and birch boughs, soften boughs, etc. Number one, we don't have a whole lot of birch in the first place for soften boughs. So what I've got written in this new plan now is we don't allow collecting birch or ginseng. Something to think about. If we are going to allow it, then I'm going to have to develop a permitting process for it. Right now, I'm covering it. It's not allowed. Just one of them things where you start getting 20, 30 requests from the public to collect this stuff. Well, that might be an area where I come back to you guys and say, hey, I've got 30 requests to collect ginseng this year. You guys think, but right now we don't allow it.
Do you get any requests now? I mean,
last year I got one request for ginseng, and I got 2 requests. It's usually around October. People want to go collect one sap of birch for Christmas. So I just asked them, I'm really intrigued where you're going to collect this birch. Well, it ended up being on state land. So I referred them to Polk. Ginseng, yeah, that's wrong. 1 to 2 requests a year. I tell them no to that. Mainly it's in here so that, you know, I go back to the ordinances and resolutions and stuff rather than a scattering throughout this plan here. These would be nice things to put in, you know, the Parks and Forestry ordinance. That way, law enforcement, whether it be Sheriff's Department, county staff, or conservation wardens through the state, got a consistent policy where you're not handing them 10 pieces of paper. Here's the ordinance. So, good so far. The last thing I do want to cover would be this little packet. Supervisor Rowdy.
I have one question when we went through these maps. This is from before town of Johnstown.
Okay.
We have that. It says 40 acres. It's landlocked.
The Supervisor Rowdy is on page 6 of the packet that I handed out. And what he's looking at is that odd-shaped piece. That is correct. That piece of property is landlocked. That's where salvage operations for the blowdown is occurring. I had to get permission from private landowners to get in there and log. So you think of it in terms of public land that is not accessible by the public. That is true, correct.
Well, in a previous discussion with you, we talked about possibly selling that piece. I know it has to be, you said we have to have another piece to offset it at some point. But if it's not accessible, it doesn't seem like anything we should have.
Correct.
Does that make sense for Brad? Go ahead.
We're going to circle back to that's kind of some unfinished business that we had and on the agenda is right now I brought up a couple of scenarios, but what's written for land sale procedure in the plan is essentially the same as it's been for the last 15 years, which essentially leaves it up to demonstration of greater public good if you're going to sell a piece of land. You have to convince the DNR by way of the application that this is good for the public. You know, we were throwing out 2-to-1 ratios, et cetera, back in chapter 400, and it was kind of left unsettled. That's why we're going to circle back to it after we get done with 1,000. So let me finish 1,000, and we'll circle back to that. We'll go right to this.
The landlocked piece is adjacent to another landlocked piece of state land, just to the south of it, which is also landlocked. And the state's owned that, or had that for 40 years. Same as the county piece is taken as tax deed property. The state's position, even on the Ricebud, part of the Ricebud Creek wildlife area, that's landlocked with the Johnstown County Forest piece, is they're basically waiting, right? Is as properties come up around that, and outcome that we could get access into the future. So state is just keeping their chunk. They had opportunity, remember a couple of years ago when the state was going to have to sell 10,000 acres and they had to identify parcels that didn't make sense to keep. That parcel was not identified as that just because it's a really nice chunk and they thought they might get access in the future. I'm not saying you're wrong, Doug, as far as the county contemplating or debating selling that and offsetting with something better or better and higher use, but there's a purpose to keeping it. Just because we don't have access today doesn't mean we won't tomorrow. And then it would be a large chunk of public land available to the public. But yeah, currently it is not. I just wanted to clarify the state chunk there. I'm not right or wrong either way, but yeah, the state's piece is attached to that, and the state then has intentions of keeping theirs. The other alternative that probably would be the best one, and I don't think they'd take you up on it, but it's worth a shot. If you went down the road of, oh yeah, we do want to sell this, offer it up to the state. Again, the state would just hang on to it, hoping to get access someday. So,
I guess I really don't have any answer except look at it and say, if the public can't access it, it doesn't make sense to call it a county forest. 40 acres.
Well, it's 240. and
it shows 40. I just pulled by what I'm looking at. It's considerably bigger than the other 40 up in the right.
That's 160. Yeah. So the benefit to the county, we have done harvesting in there. We were going to harvest this before the blowdown anyway. Revenue last time was in the $60,000 or $70,000 timber sales. So there is revenue. We do get timber sale revenue periodically, but yeah, the public can't use it. Well, the neighbors can use it. But yeah, so again, yeah.
Is that something that we look for? You get a permanent easement to get into it?
Well, that's the other thing I was going to mention, and Paul could speak better to this than me, but if we took this approach to selling land that we didn't have access to, like 3 administrators ago, I don't know how many access agreements and easements that Paul Peterson obtained to access the forest we have now. So, your line of thought is, well, some people think, well, we'll outlive all the adjacent owners, and, we identified our priorities within the plan of what pieces we would actively go after, and that was, like, number 1 is pieces of property that would give us permanent access to these types of properties. The other thing that is part of the consideration is there is 3/4 of a mile, even though we don't have access to the work that the snowmobile clubs have done, there's 3/4 of a mile of snowmobile trail through this Johnstown piece that fits in with the whole network of snowmobile trails. So it isn't accessible by the public, but it is.
Yeah.
I was agreeing with Doug 100% at 40 acres, but now that it's 240 acres. It changed my mind quickly.
And if you do look, all these maps provide the blocking boundary of the forest. And that would be the blue lines in these maps 1 through 9, just as a refresher. The official blocking boundary where we actually acquire properties fit in that big blue line if you look at like page 4 and 5. Johnstown, Apple River, and the Bone Lake properties don't fit in with the official county forest boundary. Remember that? And that was like chapter 300. All right, moving on. Essentially, last thing I have would be this little packet that I put them in order. Whether they're still in order, I'm not certain. Essentially, these would be relatively new. By that I mean these are not in the previous plan, the one that expires at the end of this year. And all these is I have issued a couple of permits. Last year I issued a permit for a disabled punter. He wanted to use an ATV on the county forest. Given that ATVs are only allowed on designated trails only, I gave him this permit, told him to have it with him, and gave him access to a portion of the county forest so that he could go hunting. That is new. The other thing that I'm going to be working on the rest of this year and the next year is memorandum of understanding. Basically in this agreement, so essentially the Sterling Loop is on Polk County Forest land and the town of Sterling lands. We have no agreement. The Governor Knowles horse trails are mostly on Governor Knowles, and they traverse the Polk County Forest also. We have no agreement. I'm fine with, I think the committee is fine with those equestrian trails being there, but we have no agreement. What the intent of this is to outline the operation of these trails. Who's signing them, who's taking care of them, who's inspecting them, etc.
So these will be incorporated into 1,000 at the end.
I'm sorry, what?
These will be incorporated into our 1,000 at
Already are there. So what occurred, and this was part of my problem not getting it out last week, is the packet that I printed out, all the ordinances and stuff are nicely typed out versus a scanned PDF. I just incorporated these on Monday.
Okay.
So, but essentially all that stuff has already been incorporated. You should have everything. It just looks nicer. I just didn't want to post a copy of a PDF. Sure. In the new forest plan. With that, this will kind of conclude this phase of, I wanted to review this with you guys before I made a draft plan available to the public. I've got some work to do on formatting issues, the table of contents, etc. And I do need to put the SFI thing in here yet.
Yes.
So the next meeting, we do need to talk about, I've been through the public process with you, with the discussions going on with the Stour, the virus, etc. We're going to have to set, I'm going to have a 1 month, I'll take comments, and then I'd like to have an open house type of format where I'm not expecting this to be as controversial as like the railroad trails, whether it be the Gandy or the Stour. I do need to get public input somehow. That will involve, it's been on the agenda while I've been going over this plan with you. Second phase will be posting this online for 30 days. And then I'd like to have an open house, so we'll set a date the next meeting.
Okay.
I just don't want to override the stuff going on with Stour. I don't want to have a Stour public input meeting, then 2 days later. So we'll set the date for this after. We'll make sure it's like 3 to 4 weeks after the Stour stuff is done.
Sure. Sounds good. Okay, and then you have the land sale procedure, that 2-for-1.
Correct. We'll move into that.
Yeah, let's move into
So what we were
changing or leave it.
So what I ended up doing, I don't have the chapter with me. Essentially, what I did is I left what I originally proposed, which is basically there's 6 to 8 criteria, but what it all boils down to is before you can sell a piece of county forest land or remove it from the county forest crop law, through section 28, is you've got to demonstrate a greater public good. If you think back to the Sterling Tower, we withdrew an acre and a half of land from the county forest program because we were able to demonstrate a greater public good. This is going to provide for safety, etc. Now, we were throwing around the idea of, well, if we do a 2-to-1, where if it appraises out at $100,000 and we get $200,000 for it, we would sell it as long as we replace the acreage. The thing to bear in mind is whatever we write, an application needs to be provided to Wisconsin DNR, and they are the final judge. And what they do is they look at what you've written in the plan. I can't stress it enough. The final litmus test or the final test is telling the DNR on whether or not this serves as a greater public good. So if we circle right back to Johnstown, the 240-acre piece, we want to sell this. I can't write an application, we're going to sell Johnstown. The DNR is going to ask me, and this is a greater public good, why? Now if we went, there's a 240-acre piece that has public access wherever in the county, we're going to replace the acreage in Johnstown with something that does have public access that would demonstrate a greater public good. So, I don't know if that answers your question. I think I'm going to leave it the way it is, and I can bring the actual copy to the next meeting and circle back and take a look at it in final terms. Go ahead. Super.
No, it doesn't answer.
Okay.
Sorry, but
ask again then.
Pardon? I just want the committee and you to keep in mind that there's just a piece of property that basically the neighbors get the use of it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So are we in that business? I don't know. I don't think so.
And I guess fundamentally I believe that the county's going to outlive the adjacent neighbor, and it does serve the public not as well as it could, but there's 3/4 of a mile snowmobile trail. So, right or wrong, that's my.
Yes. So of the 17,000 acres that the county has,
Yep.
how much is not in the forest program? That, how much of that 17,000 is available to swap on, let's say, 2-for-1? So if we sold that 240, do we have 480 acres that isn't already in the program to put in the program, just as an example? I mean, not saying right or wrong selling it, but of the 17,000 acres, if 16,900 of them are already in the forest program, it's going to be pretty hard to, sell 120 acres and be able to 2-for-1 it. I mean, there's no use having a 2-for-1 in the plan if we have no way to 2-for-1, on a 40. Type of thing.
But the 2-for-1 is also financial, isn't it? Not just acreage, it's also.
Well, I mean, it's just so the advantage is a 2-for-1. It does allow us a little more flexibility in selling pieces such as Johnstown that doesn't have access, etc. Where we're selling 240 acres and we're going to buy 480 acres. Part of this would be designating an account because it may not be readily available to sell right away. But it would be earmarked in this account, so if a piece became available, we'd go purchase it. The flip side of that is the disadvantages of doing a 2-for-1. I'll use the Sterling example again. we withdraw an acre and a half, and it's like, okay, we tie the whole self-sustaining project up until we replace the 3 acres at a 2-for-1. So there's downsides of that also. That's why I'm going back to the original, what we got written in the plan today, is kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, the current plan is still 1-to-1. You're just talking about that. And to answer your question, Brad, no, the county doesn't have excess county property. The 17,166 of the county forest is all enrolled. That's why we have a number. Any excess county properties not in county forest are very scattered. We've sold most of them over the last 10 years, right, on excess, all these property auctions, we've gotten rid of them. But Menard, all that stuff was county property, but yeah, there's no forest land sitting around. So yeah, no.
They're starting to blur together for me.
It was Mark. Okay. All right, and then you
So I guess I leave it up to you guys how much, I can bring. I got the chapters on a thumb drive here. We can go to any one of them at any time. I guess it's dependent on you. I guess what I need from you guys is your support on this thing. So if it goes to county board, I want to address your questions here. That to the best of your ability, you can answer other supervisors' questions and support this thing versus getting into October and it's like we're going back to the drawing board on an entire chapter.
sure. That one right now we should probably leave as is. Whatever you think. All right. So then it's just the establishment of a road maintenance account. That's an accounting thing or what? Or what account? I'm sorry. Establishment of a road maintenance account.
Yeah. So the final agenda thing would be today I have no account, I have no fund roads other than the gas tax roads. That would be Bear Track. If you flip to in the packet that I handed out, the big one again, and this came up in chapter 500 in roads chapter. So I'm looking at page 72. Or in the back if you want to put that on the screen. So page 72 and also 71. Essentially the roads in orange, those, again, we reviewed this in chapter 500, but those would be the roads that receive gas tax funding. In the town of Lorraine, with the help of both department at the highway, they basically maintain that road and they send me a bill. So I have the equipment, I can't afford a road grader and lawnmower, etc. So good partnership there. And then in the town of Sterling, page 2, all the orange roads again. Last year they were mowed with the county mower, and I'm in discussions right now with the town of Sterling to have them road graded. I don't think the highway department can throw a road grader on a low boy and be cost effective when there's a town of Sterling road grader right there. So all those other dotted lines, etc., blue lines, have $0 to maintain them roads. So we talk about putting up Polk County forest signs, park signs, etc. It has to be kind of nice to mow them every now and then and reflect a positive image on Polk County. I'm not saying that the budgetary dollars are necessarily going to be there every year. I guess I'd like to see a line item within the budget that gives me some flexibility now and then to replace the culvert or put some gravel down do some mowing, et cetera.
So, looking at the administrator, that could be a line item put into your budget. General government would have to look at that to decide if there's a place to get some. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's a good question. I do not have an account. There's not one in the plan today. I don't necessarily think it needs to be a roads account. It'd be nice to have $2,000 to $4,000 a year to address issues, whether it be a wooden post, a Polk County forest sign, replace the culvert if it goes bad.
Okay. Mr. Olson, yes.
So is it possible to just take a percentage of the sales? And I realize dollars are all the same no matter where they come from, but you know, we talk about 30% going to the towns. What if, could we set aside 3% of the money that comes into forestry to be spent by forestry on roads, posts, culverts, things like that? That would give them, it'd be a varying dollar amount every year, but it would be the percentage of their total sales. So, you know, you hit this year, maybe it's 100,000, you get 3, but maybe 2 years from now there's 200,000. The price of lumber has, you know, gone up. We're selling more, and there's 6,000. It's that same percentage thing again of just finding a way to fund that one little spot where Mark would have some money to play with as far as posts and that kind of thing. You know, without maybe having to go ask, you know, the finance person or something like that. And it would be dedicated just to forest lands.
That's something. Vince, that we would do budgetarily then? Look at that.
I would say that could be a request that we consider as we put together our budget. We're early in the process. I don't know that the process would be for the committee here to do that.
We get started, then we would.
Yeah, you can make that recommendation.
Make a recommendation.
But I'd want to fit it into the total package. See how it works.
And basically any extra you have goes into the general fund. Yes.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. I mean, in general, it starts out as a general fund.
Sure.
Yeah, general fund, negative levy.
Yeah.
So it gets used someplace else. So any change, you know, would go through the normal budget process.
I mean, I'll just say because it's here and now, I would like to see that move forward as a possibility. You know,
3 to 4.
maybe in November it isn't a possibility, but if we're discussing it now, you know, if we all forget about it 2 months from now, we'll be back here again next year discussing the same thing.
Even if it's called maintenance, so yeah.
So I guess at a minimum, I have the account. I guess the only account I have for forestry expenses would be a reforestation account. So if I have anything else that happens, I guess I take it out of the reforestation account. And then, you know, the thing to keep in mind is that we dwindle this down so much that part of cutting jackpine is all reforestation. You know, $16,000 on an annual basis, you cut $100,000 worth of timber. I have bad rainstorm, I would replace a bunch of culverts and pull from that reforestation fund. Also not going to improve my timber sales. I guess at a minimum, if I could work with finance and get a maintenance account established, and then that's up to the county board on an annual basis. If we take a certain percentage, that's the mechanism to do it. That's fine.
Okay.
So it's okay to work with finance and establish that?
Yes,
I think the process would be to come through me.
yes. Get it started. Other concerns, anyone? So you'll bring this back one more time?
Yeah, I think, the next meeting, I'll just put on the agenda, answer,
See how much I messed
any
up?
additional questions you guys, committee may have, and whether that's providing more information to the GLRs or actually. I'll bring chapter 400 and then sort of that out. I'll technical practice to it. So let's take one more look at that. It's written. And then, we need to do the last piece of the public open council, what I'm going to call it. The public participation process, which is going to be online for 30 days.
Or to be back in June sometime.
Yeah, depending on what shakes out the
So
stock.
by next meeting, that's what, at the end of June or so?
Yeah.
Or first one in July or
And then that gives us time to take the public comments, summarize them. And, I'd rather be done with this in September. I mean, our deadline is kind of county board approval
in September?
in October.
Okay, well, let's shoot for September.
I'd rather be done sooner than later. And there's always this element of the virus. It's like you guys talked about it this morning. I might not be able to do this in June, July. Who knows?
Yeah.
So.
Okay, Brad?
Yeah, I'm all for getting done as soon as we can. I mean, not hurrying the process necessarily, but, let's not be waiting. If it can be August, if it can be July, that's perfect. I don't want to see us pushing it out and saying, oh, here it is, October County Board meeting, we've got to be there. If we can get it there in July or August, that's when I'd like to see us get it there.
Sure. Then you have to do it. October.
Yeah. So if we need, okay.
All right. Thank you.
Cool. Very much. Good.
Kind of a boring process, but it's almost done. Thank you.
Is Joe here so that we can do that? Is that what we need? He's here? Okay, so we can move more. Okay. So we'll go to number 11. Tax delinquent properties with Mo. Do we want to go into a closed session on this?
Rather than get everybody out,
We need to be in a closed session? Oh, we do. Okay. So we still got
everything includes is part of it. How many folks are on the line?
so. Well, they're all waiting for number 9. So, I think number 9 is going to take us what? 45 minutes? Maybe not. Maybe not.
If it helps at all, we can share, 9, presentation on the training software.
Okay.
I just got a call from said that towards the very end of the agenda, going to close this.
Oh, okay. start that presentation off. Yes.
My suggestion on B was, and I brought that forward, that can be moved to.
Can that be moved also?
Absolutely.
Okay, so B and C shouldn't take very long. C would like to, should we start, how long do we think? Do we need a short break or take right into it? Okay. Let's get C done. And actually, C and E both should go fairly good because we have our list to the appointments to move forward too.
All right, can you hear me? And then if you could bring up the other documents, those are the maps. So this is just the final plat document that'll be with the file from review from staff, and then sheet 1, and if you would. Just sheet 1, be fine. Yeah. The sheet 1. Yep. 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 I'll take and go ahead and start. So what Chad's bringing up here is new subdivision in the town of Farmington. The property owner is Jeff Fox from Dresser. He's currently got an existing development in these first lots. So this here is actually north, and these lots are already in existence. Right now there's a cul-de-sac at the end of 57th Avenue, and the road has been built up to town road specs. He took and finished paving that last year. There's quite a few houses and that on these lots up here now, and this is the expansion of that original plat. So we're adding lots 10 through lot 16 over here, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. You will see that he is in compliance in that with our old subdivision ordinance and the town's ordinance, because he's got two 66-foot road right-of-ways that are extending to the far property line, which will take and leave it open for any future developments, and as far as extending those roads. The town of Farmington has approved of this, but they are waiting on getting a bond and that to take and make sure that the road is built. And that, so the owner is going to be providing the town with that bond or that performance guarantee in order to do that. I believe that they will be signing the plat on May 4th, and the plat is currently at the state right now. So all the lots meet our minimum lot sizes. Our county surveyor, Steve Geiger, has reviewed the plat for compliance with the survey standards of AE7 and complies. So our internal review is completely done. We don't see any issues with this plat, and because of that, we would recommend approval of this final plat, and that contingent upon them getting all the other people to sign off on the plat, like the treasurer and the town. So, are there any questions on this? You guys seen this as a preliminary plat review probably 2 to 3 months ago. I think it was in January.
We moved it along then too.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And then if you want to bring up that other Word document, that's just where it just basically summarizes what I just said. So, stormwater and erosion control plan was all done as part of that original first set of lots. So the Land and Water Resources Act approved of that plan as well. So, and that we didn't receive any comments from the DNR or anybody else as part of the process coming up to this point. And then, so when we did the mailing for the preliminary plat or the final plat, we had no comment. So.
Okay. So the motion we're looking for is to, approve the final, if all other signatures at the same time.
Correct. Yeah, I don't foresee any problem getting those signed. It's just to take and keep this spot moving forward, because we anticipate that everything will be signed around May 4th. So.
Okay. All right.
I'll make the motion to approve Boxwood First Edition, pending all signatures and.
Okay, second by Trace. Any other questions? If not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, the same. Okay.
And if you could go back to that order on the flash drive. Yep, done with both of them. Polk large scale livestock facility. So the document that Chad is pulling up right now, this is the final draft version of the livestock facility study group report. This is the same one that's been published on the county's homepage for the last couple of weeks. And I guess I would just like to start by saying that this draft is compiled by staff of Public Health and Land and Water Resources and also our office in zoning. And we've heard a lot of public comment about, what kind of studies has the county looked at and what kind of resources have we looked at coming up to this point. And some of that has involved the presentations from DATCAP and the DNR that you guys had last August and that at your county board meeting. It's also involved some meetings in that as staff we went to internally, and that to gather information on this, and also numerous works cited, as you can see at the end of this report. And if you can go to page 33 on the document itself. As you guys may recall, back actual resolution 3319 was the first moratorium that the county board put in place on large-scale swine facilities, and that created a 6-month moratorium, which was then further extended by resolution 3 of 20, and that just in February. And back on this original one, on page 33, line 80 through 87, the purpose of this moratorium, and that was to take and allow Polk County adequate time to study, review, and consider and analyze the potential impact of livestock facilities in Polk County. Number 2, that was to allow Polk County adequate time to research, analyze, synthesize scientific literature and data regarding the impact of livestock facilities on groundwater, surface water, air quality, and other environmental impacts as that research and data apply in Polk County. So as staff, and that a lot of these scientific resources that we've cited throughout this document, we've also listed those key aspects or those key topics. We're not saying that these are all relevant or that these livestock facilities are producing all this information or these contaminants, but we are saying in that from the research that we've gathered, and that these are what other people are saying. So this isn't a report coming from staff saying, and that you guys, don't do anything. These are what's it's just what other people have found. And as we heard in the presentation earlier, there are some differences in opinion or information, and that some of it may be more current than what we've found in this report. So, but each one of these and that were addressed. As far as being specific to swine, there's only a certain amount of these documents, and then the documents that we received from the public that involved more tables in general and weren't so specific on swine. So that's why there's kind of some overlap in that between all livestock and the swine livestock. And then these text documents or this report, we're not making any recommendations, in that as far as the conditional use conditions that we've talked about in the past. We're just simply doing what the public and what Resolution 33-19 requested of staff, and that is put something formal together and give it to you guys so you guys have some background or some context. So that's kind of what I've got, and that going forward, if you guys want to take and resolve your conversations about a livestock fighting ordinance or about conditional use conditions, I think that's probably the next step. And then you can take whatever text you like out of this document and use it to make those conditions or those choices. And some of it you might not take at all. So.
All right. Everybody ready? Go ahead, start the comment.
I guess the answer, yes, I have read it a couple times, but I'm asking the administrator. I was approached by Health and Human Services because they're one division of it, and they would like to have a joint meeting so they could have a discussion with us and express their thoughts. And I thought that was a good idea.
How would we have to notice the joint meeting?
Just to bring that to your attention that they asked to be a joint meeting.
They want one of Health and Human Services or the Health Department?
Yeah, Health and Human Services.
Okay.
Committee.
Oh, the committee?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You have to work with. What is it better to have?
It's in our rules of order that we can advertise.
I'm just saying we have a committee in the whole. We got two committees inside.
Did we anticipate that there might be a quorum of people on board to notice that?
Well, there will be. Well, we'll leave it for well.
We could definitely provide a more in-depth presentation, and that at the full county board, and that would be easier. Yeah.
Bring it all in for first hand information.
I think that's what we had originally talked about, and that is doing more of a formal presentation, and then maybe Brian and Tanya could be present as well, and that from public health and that. So.
And then we open up some more questions and stuff, and then we have the full board and check. It would just be informational. Maybe that could send all the questions that they would have.
Well, I guess I can't speak for them, but you could just run it by Tom Bonaparte and see. Supervisor Bonaparte.
Well, I think everybody can. You have to do presentation for the whole board again anyway. If one presentation is two, that makes sense. You would either see everybody right away and get you everything.
So then it would just be a meeting of the county board, the committee of the whole, and not the Health and Human Services Committee, seeing as though there's a number of citizens on that committee, right?
Well, they would be invited too.
But
the presentation would be to all the supervisors.
Right, no, but I think that's where I'm trying to get to. Is it going to be, okay, the 15 supervisors, or is it going to be would it be the 15 supervisors plus the 5 or 6 private sector individuals to sit on Health and Human Services? Because I think, Doug, correct me if I'm wrong, I think what you're saying is that they would like those people involved in it. And maybe not. If I'm.
No, I guess if they said their committee, I know what their committee was. I said
right.
I was just approached. They would like their involvement in this process here.
Yep.
So I don't really want that.
Yeah, I'm just saying
it might only be 2, but it might be 10. I mean, I know what you're talking about.
Right, I'm just asking the question of if it's at the county board or those, what is it, 4, 5, 6, whatever it is. Okay, 5 is, are they included, I guess, because I don't know how else to ask it. Yeah. You know, as members of that committee.
I don't know. We didn't get that deep to it. They would say they had to.
Maybe one of
Or if we had a joint meeting, the other supervisors, as you said, Kim, 4 or 5, I mean, they could certainly show up.
Yeah. Yeah, so that would work too. So we should find out about them. And then we have to make sure I allocate the whole.
Let me get some clarification, if I may. In my time that we've been here, we've been having a series of presentations and introduction of information and so on to this committee. And now we've kind of summarized all the group of information and the resources that have kind of been brought forth so that we can look at it and so that you can look at it and say, okay, yeah, that reminds me, I saw this. It's an opportunity for us in this room or for you to say, I'd also like some more information. So I'd like, for example, we might want Dr. Vintlerner to submit some of his studies that we could include along with this data pool. My question is by bringing in health and human services now, is the goal to bring them up to date with everything we've seen and heard, or is it to provide them with this report also and say, do you have any other things to add or questions?
I think it's good to bring up their concerns that they want us to put in.
Okay. So,
Here's what it sounds like.
Yeah, they have this presentation from Brian Carson, and I attended that meeting in person. Then I talked to John and Joe after, and they would like to have some input in where we're at from their thinking. And I think they have a right to do that, being they help services.
Yeah.
You know.
So they can come and present. We've read your
They have
report.
some thoughts. So
Yeah.
they can present their thoughts to what we're thinking.
Okay.
Where we're at. Okay.
Maybe this is out there where you just thought, but I mean, could they just come and present them to this committee?
But that was the intent. I don't know why they couldn't.
Okay, I mean, without necessarily holding a joint committee, could Joe and John, just the example, show up and say, here's the concerns. I mean, so at the next Health and Human Services Committee, let's say, they could say, here's our concerns. I guess they could come and present them, or they could say, here's our list of concerns, 1, 2, 3, type of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, that doesn't have to be the next one, doesn't go through this hour thing, but they just asked him, when we get into here and we get into that section, they want it to have some input. And that maybe the citizens, it might be, I don't know.
Sure. Well, we can set that up because like even at our quarter of the county board, right, so cut. Broken meeting. And we can invite them to the next one.
And that's my question. Would your thought be, we can ask them, or you can, to have them bring 1 or 2 representatives from the committee to do that? That would, well, that would be the question. Then it would be a different process. No, I mean, if we'd ask Maria, but do we have then a quorum? We just have to notice it. So that would be my question is, we want to bring that.
Right, so, I mean, I think we should ask them, and I don't care, but can we ask them to say, bring your concerns, send representatives, whoever they may be. I mean, they could be members of the public, they could be members of the county board, and say, come and tell us your concerns, and then this committee could look at those concerns. I mean, do you think is that kind of what they're looking for, to say, here's our concerns, And so if they were at our, well, they could be at our next meeting, right? I mean, if our next meeting is,
Mr. Chair,
Starting the rule.
would you want us to take in and kind of present to them so that they can have a facility?
I know where they're at right now.
I mean, would that be the route you'd want to take?
I think so. When is the next Health and Human Service?
They're the Tuesday, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the 5th, the Tuesday, same day as our board meeting.
Have they had,
did you say the second Tuesday, Jim?
open? Okay. Sure.
Yeah, the agenda. Well.
But it hasn't been sent out yet.
No,
So
not
we're waiting for that. Okay. Would it make sense to have Jason?
Because that would be just one day before our meeting. I guess if they have the questions and they come one day is, I don't know, is that enough? So yeah, I would be in favor of saying, at our next meeting, Health and Human Services can send 2 representatives, whatever. Yeah, to just give their concerns and then we as a committee could then look at them,
Or even staff can take and just write down some of their concerns or, take notes of that and bring that feedback back to you guys. And that if you want, I mean, if they're more than willing to comment, they don't see that as an issue, but, I don't think we have to worry about the timing because we can bring that information to you.
If you want to give them.
John kind of wanted to come, so what you're saying is fine.
Yeah.
But maybe he wants to present some of this.
Absolutely.
Just he could give a short presentation, something like the whole thing.
Yeah, I can run through some of the basics. Right. And then they might be able to talk amongst themselves and then send that one representative, but everybody's idea, then it's just that one person.
Yeah. So they might have.
Right, but I think that would be the goal for, if it's staff or if it's 1 or 2 people, to bring, here's the list of questions that we have.
Yeah, I think that would help.
Get that on there again.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
But then that would, I think, keep, I said, the confusion down here too, by them just saying, here's our questions.
Yeah, and if they have concerns or additions, subtractions, right. You don't get that question. You think. God only knows. Okay.
And I think, just as far as the content in this report, we tried to take and cite as many sources that actually would be effective, but because it's not really our language, that it's coming from those other sources, and that had, some of it may be credible and some of it may not. So it's just something to keep in mind as you read the doc.
Jason, has the public sent some emails and input on this to you directly or not?
I have not received anything. I don't know if you've received anything.
Anything directly?
Nothing written, mostly phone calls.
Okay. Anyone else? I'm just waiting for everybody. Administrators are in. We put you under public comment, you get 3 minutes.
I'm not sure I can get done in 3 minutes, but I think I can get it done in 5.
All right, hang on.
So, my concerns, and I'll just start on the cover page, and I'll just go through them, Jason, and if you want to respond at the end or not respond, or, it's my concerns. So, cover page, I believe it should say swine, not livestock, or, at a bare minimum, livestock should be put in the definition page of this.
and, showing that anywhere livestock is cited, that it is swine and not livestock, in general. Okay, I'll jump up to page 8, nitrates. When, just a question on it, on the first paragraph of nitrates. When tested, can the cause be detected as to the source of nitrates? I mean, is it nitrates from animal waste, human waste, just naturally occurring nitrates in that water? Eric has presented to us before, I believe, that there's really no way to test. It's just a nitrate test. Page 15, second paragraph, elevated nitrates in drinking water. Do elevated nitrates in drinking water only happen around CAFOs, or does this happen outside of CAFOs? So in just out in the middle of nowhere around a CAFO, is it possible to have elevated nitrates in it? Last paragraph on page 15. Additional recent studies have implied nitrate exposure as a possible risk. There again, is this only a possible risk from CAFOs, or is this a possible nitrate risk to anything that comes? Possible is one of those words that I don't think there's a real good definition for it. Coliform bacteria and E. coli. There seems to be no positive E. coli in Polk County, and I'm not the bacteria guy, but is coliform bacteria, is it related to CAFOs or not? Not sure. Page 17, I guess atrazine type pesticides. I guess I'm not sure why it's there. I'm okay with it being there. I'm just not sure how that relates to it. Page 18, pathogens. Livestock facilities can be a breeding ground for rodents, insects, and birds. All of these animals can carry pathogens which cause disease. So there again, outside of dairy, rodents, insects, and birds, do they carry the same pathogens? So if I have a bird nesting at my farm, or if somebody on the lakeshore has a bird nesting along the lake of the same variety, do they carry the same pathogens? So outside of ag facilities, can these causes or problems do the same harm as around a livestock facility? Page 19. All of these pathogens found in animal manure waste, are they only in animal manure waste, other domesticated livestock, other wildlife, other sources? Page 20, antibiotics. I have talked with staff. Staff realizes that this is, I believe, completely wrong. The things that are stated here have not been allowable for at least 3 to 4 years. Antibiotics are not included in low levels in animal feed to reduce chance of infection or eliminate the need for animals to expend energy fighting off bacteria. They cannot be used as a growth inhibitor or growth promoter anymore. I would have no problem with the veterinary feed directive being placed under antibiotics, but to leave this portion in here that is totally incorrect. It is sourced from Understanding CAFOs. It is sourced from Kaufman in the year 2000. It's a 20-year-old source that this is cited from. If you dig into it far enough, and pretty much everything that's in here is out of date.
veterinary feed directive is, I believe, nationwide, certainly for the state of Wisconsin, if nothing else, but I'm quite sure nationally. I believe that's what should be here, and to leave any part of what is here, and then try and explain that this is wrong under it, is leaving an inaccuracy and then trying to explain that it's wrong below it. And if we're going to do that, then I guess I wonder how many other spots are we trying to explain inaccuracies within the report. I mean, but look into it, see what you think. Air quality, the speaker touched on that pretty heavily this morning. A couple things I hit on. Again, and second paragraph, while exposure from air pollution from livestock operations can cause or exacerbate respiratory conditions, such as a number of the others. Can this be caused outside of a CAFO, outside of agriculture? Do individuals still have, difficulty breathing, wheezing, sore throat, chest tightness, nausea, bronchitis, and allergic reactions? It's the spring of the year. I think there's probably a lot of that going on with people who have allergies that have nothing to do with agriculture. Concentration and length of exposure in the last one there is, how far from the farm is that supposed odor causing the problems? And a lot of these sources that I found are coming from another county who done a study, and they're sourced to another county who is sourced to another county, and we are using that county. We used a particular county a lot in sourcing things, Greene County Livestock in particular, and a lot of theirs came from other counties. So our source came from the Greene County report, which came from the Dunn County report, which may have came from the Bayfield report. And I guess my questioning is when we're just looking at study groups doing it, and I hope this doesn't sound like I'm picking on staff, but it started somewhere. It started at a county 3 or 4 counties away, and everybody has sourced it. And is the source really good? That's all I'm saying. Is there scientific facts behind the study that the first county used 4 studies ago? Third paragraph, particulate matter.
Yes. Brad, I'm not trying to butt in, but what you're doing is fine. Understand that. We only have one division here. The health division should be here and the land and water should be here because there's nobody taking notes to have a rebuttal.
I got a whole page of notes here they can have.
No, they should be here to hear what you're saying because Jason's here.
Yep. I will just say that I did ask that all departments be here today. And I'd be more than happy to make the presentation again if you want me to down the road.
Let's let him finish because I'm thinking some notes. And he's thinking notes.
But don't you think that the people that wrote this should be here?
Yes, at least
this is
that answer.
I do. But in a way, I've been sort of coordinating the project with the other staff, and so I can convey these concerns to them. We're looking at this as, this is our first draft of the report. And we delivered it to you, at least it's been available for a month now, but we delivered it 2 weeks ago. And so the way we're approaching it is, this is your opportunity. Have you read it? Have you reviewed it? This is your opportunity to provide some feedback because we can adjust this report accordingly. And so that's kind of how we're looking at it. I will say because of the COVID crisis, it kind of came into our wheelhouse, our being the Environmental Services Division, because some of our other staff were preoccupied with higher priorities. So we wanted to keep this moving forward. And so it's nice to hear that, Health and Human Services has some input as well. And just think of it as part of the process. This is a living document that can change, and we still have some time. So we're totally amenable and open to any feedback and redrafting this and following up with your concerns. We do have some responses as well to what Supervisor Olson is pointing out, but that can wait for a later time as well.
And just to put some context around this, Supervisor Olson has read the report. He's been in contact with all of us, sharing his concerns. We pass that in. I get calls from various supervisors, various citizens, and all that information comes in. And I think Supervisor Olson would even admit that for every point he's made, there are points made from somebody with a different opinion. Our role here is not necessarily, here's the answer, here's what you should do, but rather to say, here is all the information that's been gathered, and what one person thinks is very credible and scientific and accurate, another person may say is hogwash, so to speak. So, and vice versa. So, I think what Supervisor Olson is doing is good that he is presenting more information to go into the final report. The report isn't going to come back and say, this person is right and this person is wrong, as much as we're going to say, here's the credible evidence that we've garnered, that we've looked at, and we've presented to you in one fashion or another. And now as the Environmental Services Committee, you've been asked to make a recommendation going forward. And I would hope that not only do we get feedback from him, but we get feedback from Mr. Bonaprise or whomever, again, like we have been for several months now, because we're at that point where we can go back and forth forever. Let's take the best information we have, not confuse ourselves, but with this information, what are we going to recommend? And that's where I think we're getting close to that point now. Okay.
So I'm good to go again?
Page 16.
Yeah, page 14 apparently.
14, there you go.
So there again, last paragraph, aside from the possibility of lowering air quality, doesn't say that it does lower air quality that CAFOs do. It says that it's possible that it lowers. CAFOs also emit greenhouse gases and therefore contribute to climate change. I guess my question would be is it only CAFOs? I don't have a CAFO, I don't have 1,000 cows, but I've got 40 cows. Does my one cow emit the same amount of greenhouse gas as the one cow in the CAFO? And if we gather all the animals that aren't a CAFO and add them together, they're still emitting more than the CAFOs do. I hope that came across right. As far as all livestock are emitting greenhouse gases. It's a cow, it's a hog, it's a goat, it's a rabbit. I don't care. Whatever it is, and it's just one for one. It is not necessarily coming from a CAFO because someone has, 1,000 animal units over someone who has 20 animal units. That animal is emitting the same amount of greenhouse gas regardless of what it is. And then I guess once again, sometimes it is not what is in this report, just like what was not necessarily what was in the health department report that I did not like. It is what is left out. Page 23 of the Greene County report on air quality, where most of this has come from, states at the end of it, limited research makes it difficult to determine health implications of exposure to CAFO emissions beyond property lines. So there again, it isn't what was there, it was what I'm going to say what was left out of that information that was used from another study that come right out and said that, once you cross property lines, emissions are not necessarily, known to be how bad they are. Page 24, let's see, what is it under? Surface water. So page 24, the first full paragraph there again is, phosphorus getting into surface water. There again, what are we doing about the 17,000 acres of county land that sheds, leaves that produce really an enormous amount of phosphorus to end up in our waters? Are all waters impaired from agricultural sources? I'll go back to Coon Lake, that was cited in a presentation a while ago. There's no agriculture around it, but it's on the impaired list. So not all impaired waters are necessarily impaired from agricultural sources. A lot of them are just natural sources because of the surrounding terrain of the land. Lake St. Croix study, it was cited in here again. In the Lake St. Croix study, it was not agriculture that was their concern over the long haul. I believe it was from 2012 to 2020, but it states that housing was their main concern for phosphorus contamination within Lake St. Croix. And then I would jump you all the way back to the survey. I flipped too far. So pages, I'm assuming it's going to start 31 probably. So the results of the survey, 63 total surveys were filled out. Question 3 was, you have 15 dairy cows, 20 beef, 2,000 chickens, 1,111 turkeys, 50 pigs, amounting to 20 animal units. So 26% of those, or 74% of those respondents said they were not producers in that study, or in that survey. If you look through the survey, almost every question is a 75 to 25% breakdown. In that survey, some of them have multiple answers. So if you add them up necessarily, but what we have in that survey, realistically, for the most part, is the farmers saying one thing and the non-farmers saying another. So you can say, yeah, 75% of the people said, we want Pathos to start at 250 animal units or less, or 750 animal units or less. But they're not in the dairy business. And so as closing, what I would say to those who want agriculture to be like Brad Olson and still have 35, 40 cows, is it's time to get on board. If you want me to feed the nation, we need 1,000 of you in every county. That's what we've lost in the last 60 years in agriculture. So if you're unwilling to help me, if you're unwilling to walk through the door and say, yeah, give me a building permit to count cows, I'm not sure that the 75% in that survey, while it's good information, it's very easy for me to be against something that I have nothing to do with. So with that, I'll end. And I do have a copy, Jason, of most of the things that I went through.
Mr. Chair, I can just provide some comments. As far as like the possibilities and the can be's, Polk County hasn't done any studies. We don't have any of our own scientific evidence, so we are relying on others' work in order to take and put these in writing. And just from my own experience in that, you might have two producers, and one producer you might have very little of these concerns or these possibilities, and that because they might be a better operator. And then you have the other guy and that may have more of these issues. They might have, excessive nutrients on their fields that are going to lead to higher levels of nitrate leaching and stuff. So you can't put everybody in the same pool and categorize them all the same way. And by no means was this report, picking on, a certain type of farm. Some of these effects in that, like nitrate leaching, is not directly related to the animals, and that except for maybe through some manure. But other agricultural practices, like a normal crop farmer, might have nitrate leaching as well. So you could have nitrate leaching and that out of your yard fertilizers. So by no means is this a concept of all of the possible contaminants that might be in Polk County.
Okay. Any other comments on that?
One very quick sentence. And I agree with everything you said, Jason. It's just that I think when people look at this, they look and say, look what livestock agriculture does. There's this report of all these horrible things it does. And because they're not in agriculture, that they don't realize that they put more nitrogen on their lawn than I put on an acre of corn in a year. And they don't see that as a problem because they want green grass. And one last thing, then I will shut up. I think when I look through this and I read it, and trust me, I have read it dozens and dozens and dozens of times, I see nothing in here to say, here's the positives of agriculture. Here's what agriculture does to preserve water quality, to preserve, the soil, and those types of things. And so someone being from agriculture, I look at that study and say it is a 100% anti-agriculture study. Maybe I'm reading it wrong because I'm in agriculture. But that's the way I look at it, is that there is nothing in this report that says agriculture does a good thing. So I will shut up now.
Okay. Anyone else? Any comment? Because we'll get some more. God, you don't want to dig in on that? Thanks. Okay. I think we're good then, Jason. Thank you. We're going to eat, then we'll take a short break to go into our tax delinquent. Yeah. So E, we all got the list. These are the people for all these lake districts. And I think I'll ask these people.
So they've been contacted. The Environmental Services Committee recommends these appointments to the county administrator, who then announces them to the Polk County Board for appointment. I think Caitlin reached out to everyone. Brad, did she call you? Okay, because Frank was the prior representative. Okay. So yeah, the list is compiled. Chair put it together the other day. Those are the folks that are willing and able to be appointed to those lake districts.
Oh, if the administrator wants to see, I can sense it saying that people that would like to sit down, and I think it move it to him. Is that? Yeah, I don't think that's right. I think a motion would put him under. Then he has to do it. As long as you all are happy, you want on the lake association, otherwise never. I think.
Mr. Chair. I think, Tracy, did you want to have a question about that as well?
I did have a question on one of the lakes. I do have difficulty getting to the Pipe Lake one. They do have day meetings sometimes. They have, Saturday meetings, those kinds of things. So it's a little bit more. William Johnson did sit on that when it was a monetary compensated
But since he's not, been on it, and that was added to my plate. So, I mean, that is a tough one for me. So if there was somebody who, could sit on that would be great. The other two are close to me, so I don't have an issue. But Pipe Lake is a little difficult for me. I don't make a lot of their meetings.
Couldn't we reach out to the Lake Association and ask if they had a person who wanted to, take that position, so to speak?
I think historically, yeah, it's unfortunately the responsibility of the supervisor to do that, and we could reach out to those folks and find someone to serve. And again, it was Pipe Lake. Okay. So with that in mind, then we won't know that person till right. Because I think this is an agenda item on the next county board meeting. Is that correct? Yeah. So we'd have to work on this rather quickly to do that.
Mr. Chairman, 4 years ago, then the supervisors were on there, but Brian Masters asked to be on Bone Lake because he used to live there. But there was a directive 2 years ago that it had to be a supervisor in that district, or a designee of some sort. They have to be connected to. I haven't seen that directive this year.
What we did was Tim Ritton had such a tough time for a while. And, like I was going to be awesome, like that didn't make any sense at all. I didn't want to be on any of them because they have voting power. And if you vote taxes up, if my taxes down, I'd be on Lake Association. They do that.
But I understand that, but I'm on the Bone Lake district, and I just told them I don't have voting power.
Okay.
I mean, I can just express that to them, because I can have voting power, but I don't vote on any monetary issue.
Okay. So, because some of these want, basically, how many people are on that one?
There's a lot.
Is there?
So
there might be.
There's actually 2 Pipe Lakes.
Yeah.
So
they might want somebody because you would have voting power, didn't you?
I did, but I never.
You never voted. Okay. Never got caught in that. All right.
Well, like I said, I didn't make a lot of their meetings because it was either I had something going, or it was a day meeting, or something. So.
Okay. That would be the only open, and but if it moved forward, if her name was on it, we could always change it. Yeah. So the rest are all good, I think. Okay. Yeah. I believe so. Okay. Oh, only one question, that isn't too bad. So that'll move forward.
I just feel that if I can't make it, it's not doing any good.
Yeah.
They want that representation, but I'm not able to. I try, but I can't.
All right. Let's take a short one, and then we'll take it for a closed session. Or do we do it yet? Yes.
Who are you asking me?
Yes.
Okay. For the next agenda?
Yeah. Okay.
Sure. Let me grab it. It's 2 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, I got with public comments. We're going to allow for public comment to be submitted in written form, so we'll get that out, and staff will collect and share with you all prior to the next meeting. We'll have the public hearing for the Starlight Trail on the agenda as well. We'll have an update on the notice. We have the dates. Thank you for that. And we also had in mind and have developed a process for remote testimony. In the event, we'll do that. So we'll make sure on the notice there's those 3 dates, both June 2nd, that'll be the morning, for public testimony between 9 and 3. So that's the day 1. And then June 3rd will be 4 to 8, unless that's bumping heads with, that's a Tuesday, yep. And then June 11th will be this committee's agenda. Will be posted on public notice for your review of the public comment. We'll also have the Trail Advisory Group. We're from now we'll call it TAG. We will hopefully have a list of those self-nominated representatives from each of the user groups identified. So hopefully we'll have that in place. Didn't we do that? Those folks were already appointed at this meeting?
You don't bring it back,
True, but would you like an update, or at least we can talk about, Okay. And then for forestry, looks like really we're getting to the point outside of Chapter 400, a final review of the draft 15-year forest comp plan. Also, we could talk about setting a public hearing, although Mark mentioned an open house. So we can look at some dates in July. Again, trying to avoid bumping heads with the Star public hearing. But we still have a timeline with that, of course, as you know. We need to get this in front of the county board for approval by October. So that's on task. The large-scale livestock facility report, we'll take this feedback back and redraft, incorporate what we can. Looks like we'll have to work with Health and Human Services on that input as well. So, sure. Okay. We can do that. If you'd like to learn about the new ascent permitting software, that can be part of the next agenda. JC, if there's time. So that's a topic item that can always be talked about and presented. And then Supervisor Routies, and forgive me, that's actually wordsmithed correctly. It should be regarding rate classification, period, no districts. So, yeah. So we'll just, we'll put that on the future meeting agenda. And then, another thing to look at, I'll look at the 2020 work plan for our governing committee. Mark had brought up, and he's right, both Tim Anderson and him have worked on consolidating all the past forestry related and recreation related ordinances. He talked about a copy of the PDF, a copy of a copy. So we cleaned it up, and so it's a one-stop shopping, but there is some conflicts or they need to be reviewed and consolidated. So that might be, not in the near future, but a future agenda item for the governing committee, right? So I'll look at the work plan, see if I can fit that in. Maybe there's a little more.
Could we, and maybe we can't, but on the written public comment, could we cut that off, like, let's say, end of day Monday, just so that we can get them? Tuesday, they could be emailed to us, so that when we don't walk in here on Wednesday, it's like, here, Doug, here's 25 public comments that you've seen. Nothing about. I mean, if we cut it off at end of day Monday, then staff has time to fire them out to us so that we've got a day to look at them. You know, it does us no good to walk in and get a stack full of them and then say, committee's going. I'll read them tomorrow. You know, so there again, just a time element for staff to be able to get them to us. I just want to add something. I'm going to start to play by the new rules before the new rules show up here. I would like to see us, not necessarily at the next meeting, but not too far down the road, look at tourism and economic development, and not saying we should merge them. We should look at the possibility as budgets are going to tighten. And, you know, it would not be, shall I say, hurting one or the other. I believe they could be an enhancement for both of them. If they were together, worked hand in hand, and maybe look at where they're overlapping or, you know, where they can help each other out. It isn't saying that anything would change down the road. It's just saying, let's look at it and see if it's worth changing down the road. I don't know that it is. You know, I'm just saying I think with, you know, less money coming into the county, anything we can do to save a few bucks or enhance both programs is something worth looking at. But like I say, not the next meeting, but, you know, something for Bob maybe to put on the work plan down the road if the committee feels as though it's worth looking at.
Just to go back to look at our divisional deal and our rules of order, old and new. Extension is under. Okay. So, you get to fit that in there, so.
Well,
It won't be hard, will it?
I mean, it can be looked at as a contracted service. I've been told by them, and it is correct, that's why we have the FSA representative. As you all know, Extension used to have a much more robust agricultural program, and I'm not sure if they model now, but we just have an ag presence 1 day a week. But that's why Mr. Garrett is on the committee, because a percentage of their funding comes from the federal government, a land grant, and that's why the FSA has that oversight. What I've been told, because they're state employees, and I could be wrong, but this is just talking to the regional director, that sort of more formal management or oversight of staff lies with her, not with the governing committee. So they're willing to give their annual report. They do report to this committee, and you are in control of, you know, their budget. So Brian, I feel more, you know, put them on your organizational chart if, you know, it helps folks. But you can kind of look at them and say, really like West Cap or regional planning, some of those ancillary contracted services that we have. So be sort of a coordinating department within the division, if that makes sense.
All right. Because I know the last ag agent left, have they been replaced? You know, I mean, because we share 20% or something with Barron County. Has that position been replaced, or is it still vacant, you know?
Going to be interim director for CJ, or interim coordinator for CJCC. That's just an example. They step out. It's not just agriculture. They do many different things.
Okay, can we take a short break, go into the Polk